guys, I'm not doing an intro to this because I'm speed sewing. I will let you know though, so all my outside pieces have been an extra heavy non-woven iron-on interfacing, and then the flap I have put the base stabilizer to make it super gloriously thick. I am doing 2 different wallets at once, so I'm going to be chain speed sewing. My thread is my Vardnum thread. So the M40, which I think is like Tech 70 in America. And out of habit, I always start with my card slots. So as you can see, I've pre-ironed them. And I cut them down to size so I don't have to do it later. So I just sew one and then chop the other one off and then go again. So I can make these quite quick when I chain sew. I like to waste as little thread as possible. So I'm using white on this because I think it's going to go with both the fabrics. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch just really close to the edge up the sides so that they don't come apart while I'm trying to sew them later. So just right on that edge, and then I'm going to do the other side, but I'm going to still go from bottom to top so that the pockets don't move on me. So I'm going to do both sides. And this is why we chain sew, because it just works out better. So then I'm going to find the halfway point, to which I'm going to mark. And then draw a line. And I'm going to sew each side of this line, but really close to it. So that's my cut line. And this is going to prevent them from flopping about later, because that would really annoy me. So I tend to always do card slots first. You don't have to start here. It's just the habit that I'm in. And again, I'm always sewing the card slots from bottom to top because they're less likely to shift, and that's kind of the point of us doing this. So just each side of the line, and then I'm going to chop on the line that I drew. So now when I separate these, all my seams are my seam allowance, but the pockets don't flap around. So then I'm just going to go straight ahead, put them right sides together, like this, and they should be even because you cut in the middle. If I wasn't doing a video, sometimes I do this on a cutting board with a rotary cutter, but this works just as well, and I don't have to get up. I just like my rotary cutter. I'm also back stitching to lock the stitches in. I don't want them to come undone on me. That would suck. Alright, so then I'm going to grab the matching back piece. So because I'm using 2 different colours, you just want to make sure that you're coordinating everything and don't grab the wrong thing. Which, by the way, we're doing Mickey Mouse and Looney Tunes. Just for anyone that wanted to know that before I'm finished. I will have to get up at some point and use the iron, but I like to try and do all of the ironing at once, so I only have to get up once. Because, again, it's all about speed sewing. I have a lot of sewing to do most days. And obviously videos I slow down to explain what I'm doing. But today is speed sewing because I do have a more detailed tutorial on this wallet. So if you go through all my videos, there is an NCW mini wallet tutorial. So I just turn it out and finger press it. I actually think this looks really nice with the white stitching. I could have also done red and got away with it on both, but I'm out of bright red thread, and Vardnum threads is out of bright red thread, which is super annoying. So I have to be creative. I've got dark red, like a maroon, which works in some instances, but it wasn't going to work here. So it was either going to be black or white, all the same color as the hardware. I hadn't quite decided. Alright, so that's now the card slots all done, and that took what, 5 minutes and 9 seconds. That's awesome. So now I'm going to take my top, my flap, and take the fluff off, and then I'm going to stitch them together, and I always have my stabilizer side facing up, because the idea is basically that we stitch next to it. So you want to make sure that you've ironed it on really well, because technically we're not really stitching it in. And now I can chop off the second card slot and then grab the second flap. Now because everything's in twos, you can chain sew literally everything, which is awesome. Alright, so they will need to be ironed the other way. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the card slots, of which I'm missing an orange piece. That's not ideal. Alright, we need zip. So next to me I have some fun orange zip that I can use for the Looney Tunes one. So I'm just going to cut it to size with zipper scissors. If you've never watched a video before, always have specific scissors designed for just zips. And I'm going to have to get up in a second and get some zipper tape for the other one. Oh, I thought I had black here. I do. There it is. See, I know what's going on. Alright. If it's got a right and a wrong way, this is actually non-directional. But I like to try and put a direction on the print. So when I cut it, I'm going to put that aside. I'm also going to chop this off. Spin it around, fold just the top one over and then top stitch. I don't have to back stitch if I don't want to because I didn't chop the stitch off. And then again, don't ever throw out your small bits of zip. There's lots of patterns that take little pieces. Like lots. Alright. Grab a Mickey Mouse. Put it face down. Chop off the first one. Spin round. Fold it over. And now I really need that other piece of orange. Here it is. So the reason I'm a little bit less organized than normal is the bench that you are leaning on, or the camera tripod thing is leaning on, is usually what I have all the pieces on, so I can kind of organize it there. Can't do that when I'm doing a video, but I'm still relatively organized. It's always good to have like a little portable bench to put things on. It just helps with tidying. So I'm going to do the other side again. Mickey is very non-directional, so it doesn't matter. Put it any way I want. And when I'm sewing, I'm just leaning my zipper foot up against, or not my zipper foot, my normal foot up against the zipper. I also didn't change my top stitch length for this. I don't think it needs it. So now I need to decide what colour hardware. So I'm going to do gunmetal grey for Mickey Mouse, and I'm going to do antique bronze for Looney Tunes, which also means I need zippers. Zipper and zipper. So I'm going to use my zipper jig. Now I've done a separate video on my zipper jig, so I'm not going to keep moving it through all my videos. You can just go watch that one. It's got no ads attached to it. It's like a 2-minute video. And I always like to stand over my zipper jig. I don't know why. It just works better usually. Except right now. I'm trying to speed sew. I also find background noise usually helps. My background noise is I'm going to talk to myself. Which, funnily enough, is not actually something I normally do. Except for videos. Alright, my zipper doesn't want to go on just because I'm trying to do a video, I swear. So I'm going to zip it 2/3 of the way and then open it. Put all my hardware in the little dish thing. And then, I actually do this weird. So I always sew the top first so that the fabric can't move and distort on me. Needle down, pivot. I'm going to go down. And then once I go over the zip, I'm actually going to tape it in a little bit because I find it sits nicer. So again, zipper on. Hopefully this one will be quicker. This is also a good time to think about if you've used a print that's not as directional as mine or non-directional, you might want to think about which side you want the print on when you're putting the zipper on. These ones don't matter, so that's why I'm not bothering. Down the side, over the zip, and then taper in just a little bit. So you don't want to taper in heaps. And this may seem weird as to why I don't just go all the way around, and the answer is it's easier to stitch the zip this way than the other way. So I do it this way. And again, you don't have to sew the way I sew, but it's less fiddly. I also don't have to clip it, which I like. Clips are good, and I do clip certain things, but it's definitely quicker to not have to. Alright, then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to chop off this excess here so the pocket's going to sit flat. Chop out the corners. So I do this on like a funky angle. I don't like how close that seam is there, so I'm just going to reinforce it because I think it was going to come undone. Then I'm going to chop down this side as well and then do the same to Mickey. So now I can go over to my iron and I'm going to turn these out and iron them flat. While I'm there, I'm also going to take the flaps and do them as well. Now a little tip before I go, with the stabilizer, if you warm it up for 3 seconds, it comes much more pliable and it'll be easier to turn your pocket out. So I will quickly press this, then turn it, and it's not so hot that it's going to burn me. I also might want to chop down some of the excess on here too, so it's going to sit nicer. But just on the curvy bit, the straight bits are usually alright. Alright, so I'll be back in a sec. I am just going to go and iron all of this. I am back. Everything is ironed. So now what I'm going to do, I didn't even turn my machine on before I put the video on. So I'm just going to top stitch along this edge along here because I think it looks nice. You can skip this bit if you want to. Alright, so now I'm going to take, I'm going to move these out of the way actually. Chop them off, stick them in a pile. So now that's 2 out of 3 parts done. So now I did this off camera because it required cutting, but I actually cut a slot in the middle. And the way that I work that out is it shows you where you're going to sew. So I just make sure that my marks are in there and then I cut that open. So I use a rotary cutter, but whatever. You can use whatever you like. I have the pattern so that I can just lay it on top, and I've hole punched where the magnet goes or your turn clip or whatever you're using. So I can just mark that with the pattern piece. I also need it handy for like where I'm going to put my rivets and stuff as well. So that's why I do that. Then I'm just going to grab a pen and I'm going to mark where my holes are going to go. Grab my craft knife. Cut said holes. Now the vinyl won't need any fray stopper, but my Looney Tunes one will because I've done it in all fabric. Grab my fray stopper and just put 2 little dots. Yes, I did squeeze that, and yes, I usually tell you not to, but I wanted it to do it right now. And I don't squeeze it while it's coming out, I just squeeze it until it's into the nozzle. So I'm going to separate my magnet. Wait, black, goes on the other one. This one's antique bronze. Make sure you put them on the right colours. Another alternative is I should have just used the same colour on both. But I didn't want to. I want them to look different. I don't want them to look like they were made at the same time necessarily. Alright, and then I'm going to take my flaps. Now, I can tell which side I'm going to put the magnet on because that's actually the side I put the stabilizer on because I knew I was going to have to cut through it. So then I just want to find the middle, mark the middle, cut the holes. Same deal as what we just did, basically. You'll also notice I'm not top stitching this now. That is a later problem. And I'll show you why in a minute. Alright, so magnet in. Stick your hands in and put your gasket on the back. Make sure you do a gasket. It's going to survive longer than if you don't put a gasket. It's got more chance of falling out if you don't use it. So I do highly recommend using your gasket. If you don't have any gaskets, which is this bit, by the way, if you don't have any of them, put some like duct tape over it. Or whatever you've got, just to help it stay in there. Same with bag feet. Loctite on your Chicago screws, or in my case, I used super glue because I don't have any Loctite here at the moment, and I used some this morning. Alright, so they're done. So now what I want to do is I want to find the center. So normally I do this on a board of some description. So my cutting board, because I find that easier. But because I don't have it, I'm just going to fold both in half to find the center and pin it or clip it. Whatever. I just put 3 on there and then I put the lid on. So I put the lining right sides down. And then I'm just going to add some more clips. I mainly do this so it's not going to shift on me, because that's what I don't want. And then I'm going to do the same to the other one. So normally I would do this, instead of folding it like I am, this would normally be done on a cutting mat, just so it's easy. So that's going to sit there, and it's mainly to make sure that this is lined up in the center. But since I'm not getting off my butt, we're doing it this way. Make a sandwich with the right sides down. Think of the right side of your fabric like butter. You're going to put the butter on the inside. Unless we're making a toasted cheese sandwich, in which case the butter's on both sides. But that is a problem for another day, and it doesn't really work in this analogy. Alright, so quite often I like to sew with the lining sides down. Because of the two of them, it's the softest one, so it's more likely to give me grief. Please don't go this fast if you've never made this before. You have to remember I've made hundreds of these. I don't know how many exactly, I don't actually keep record. I chop this one off to do the final curve so it doesn't wreck it and distort it. Oh, and I just ran out of bobbin thread. That's okay, I made another one. In anticipation for this. Oops, and I just unwound half of it. Always have extra bobbins. I knew this would take 1 and a bit, so I had 2. Well, that was a 3/4 one, the first one. And then I just wound a full one before I started the video. So I'm just going to go back to where I was, back stitch, go again. I almost made it back to the start. Doesn't that annoy you? Alright. zigzag scissors or pinking shears, I'm only going to clip the edge where the curve is, and only the one with the vinyl. The one with the fabric won't give me as much grief, but because the vinyl is quite more firmer, it's not going to be my friend. So by trimming this down, it's going to have less kind of sharp bits and more of a curve. And then you stick your hand in the hole, pull that out, and then I use my thumbs to push the rest of it through. Now sometimes I'm a little bit rough and I actually can hear the fabric rip, but that's why I always make sure that my marks where I cut are like well within the area. I left my turning stick over at the sewing machine, at the ironing board. There's one. And here's two. So for me, it takes me longer to cut and iron a wallet than it does to sew it. Which is also why I like to do my cutting at night when I can't be bothered sewing. If my eyes are tired or if I'm frustrated or whatever, I tend to not sew. I will stop and cut instead. All right, right sides up, stitch length up to 3 3/4. I'm not gonna backstitch at the start. And I'm just going to maneuver this as I go. You could also go and iron this. I'm kind of finger pressing it with my finger at the front. You also don't want to iron the vinyl one. You're very likely to wreck it. Alright, then I'm going to cut this one off. It's going to make it easier to maneuver this second one. It's also why I always start on a straight. Just going to finger press that, and then you can kind of stitch along. So this front finger, I'm actually pushing very hard and creasing the vinyl before I stitch it. That's just a practice thing, because I've been doing it for ages. I'm then going to melt the ends, and because it's white thread, you really want to make sure you're using the blue thread, the blue flame, not the red flame. If I used the red flame, it would turn the thread brown and yucky, which is obviously something we don't want. Okay. So now I'm going to take these and line them up in the middle. I can go a little bit higher. Grab some wonder clips, and then I'm just going to fold that over, and I usually put 5 clips. 1 at each end, 1 in the middle, and then 2 in between those. I used to use less clips, and I found that it would try and move while I'm stitching it, which was super annoying because then I'd have to go back and re-stitch it. Nobody's got time for that. So I do the 3, and then I'll come back and put, whoops, that one's upside down. Put 2 in the middle like that. So I'm going to do the same with this one. Line it up, top and bottom. I put my fingers right at the edge and then fold it right over it to make sure that I'm going to encase all of those edges. Now this one, I'm going to skip the top and bottom one for a minute. So I'm going to put 3 on, and then I'm going to grab my pliers and just squish these bits. Otherwise they tend to give me a little bit of grief, especially this top one, because you've got to kind of ride up onto it and it doesn't like it. Then add the clips. Other side, crease it right there. Clips on to hold it in place. So you'll notice I didn't have to squish the all fabric one, because it's just not as thick. It'll still look just as nice though. I also use 2 hands with my pliers because I really want to squish it down. Anyway, next, I'm going to take this one first. Actually, I might bring that back, put all the clips in. So I'm actually going to start a little bit in. I'm going to back stitch first and then go forward. I'm doing about a 1/4 inch seam to make sure I'm hiding everything. And then I'm just going to stitch up and do the flat at the same time, which means less stop and start points. Lift up my foot to make sure that it's not creasing in that corner. And then back stitch. Next. Again, we're going to lift it up, we're going to drag this in, we're going to go backwards first, just for a few stitches, and then I'm going to chop that one off so it's out of my way. And then off we go. You'll hear I slow down at the curves because I want them to look neat, obviously. Alright, now, this is the bit that I manually kind of punch just to get over that hill. Ugh. Thought I was going to snap my needle then. It thought about it. And back stitch. Pull that out, chop all the threads off. We are nearly finished, guys. It's not going to be a very long video today, but that's because I'm on fire. And then you want to open this and make sure you can't see any of your bits. This one I can. See here? Missed. So, that's fine. We just, because it's the fabric one, we can just unclip it from there to there. And that just means that when I clipped this, I didn't pull it properly. These things happen. If you clip every 3rd or 4th stitch, you should just be able to undo it from the back. Fun fact for you. Ta-da! And out she comes. So now, I just want to bring that over. Make sure it's gonna, there we go. Start here, 2 forward, 2 back. Stitch, 2 forward, 2 back. Chop off all your tails, and nobody but you will know it's there. If you do lots of back stitching, you kind of draw attention to it. We don't want to do that. Okay. I always like my zips to the left, but before I do that, I'm just going to make sure that my lining is all the way down, so it's going to catch. That's important. We're going to stick this in the center. And I'm going to clip it to the card slots like this and like this. Same with the other one. In the center. If you don't center it, one of your pockets will sit higher when we do our next step. Or the last step, really. Okay. Get my favorite ruler. Now, in a perfect world, where your card slots meet is supposed to be the center, but I don't trust that. So, I measure with a ruler. Mark the center. I love this ruler for these wallets. It's great. Then, just put the ruler across the 2 marks. A rule line. Boom. That's now my stitch line. So I'm going to do the same to this one. There. And there. Doing it this way just ensures that everything's straight. And because we hide those, the join underneath, even if you are crooked, nobody's going to know. Okay, now I like to start bottom to top on the short edge so that I get this seam in here first. It's a personal preference. It probably doesn't matter, but it matters in my head, so I do it this way. Needle down, pivot, across, back stitch, pull it out, snip, maybe, maybe not. 2 forward, 2 back, lock it all in, needle down, pivot. Sometimes as well, you want to just be a little bit conscious about your magnet. So sometimes I'll hold this up because I've had it distort my stitches when the magnet hits the plate and kind of wants to stop, which is also not what we want. So the sewing portion of this is now done, guys. It really didn't take me very long. I don't know how long, because I had to stop the video. I don't know. So I'm just taking off this bulk here. There was like a bit kind of threaded through, but we're fine. Don't put away your clips though. So I just use my pattern piece and I lay it on with my seam allowance back, and then I just use clips to mark where I've got to do the joining. You just want to sit it all in the center, and then your clips will be in the center. You'll also see my child took to this with scissors, so I stuck it back together with duct tape. We just want to chop off all the extra threads. Double check there aren't any anywhere else. But we're good. Okay. So again, take these clips, the 4 clips we used there, and then we're just going to put them back on in a different position. I know there's a way that you can measure this with a ruler, but honestly, who can be bothered? I find this just as quick. Okay. This, again, is why I have 2 of these. One is a hole punch, one is a rivet press. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to grab my hardware. So I'm just grabbing 4 of each colour. So my rivet caps and presses and stuff. And then I always start with the short one without the zipper. I don't know why, I just do. I find it easier to do. So I'm going to squish it together, sit it under, and stab a hole. So I'm going to hole, rivet, and then do the next one, because that's how I like to operate. So then I'm going to do the other side. Squish, grab, hole, rivet, and then squish again. Right, so that one side's always the easiest. Then I'm going to grab the top and do the same. So I'm going to pinch that, take the clip off, under the hole punch. I love this hole punch. It is from Green Beans, if anybody wants to know. I think it cost me $39 express delivery, worth every cent. It punches through everything and it's so easy. My hand no longer hurts from squishing stuff. It's amazing. Anyway. And no, I am not affiliated with Green Beans and they do not pay me to say these things. Nobody pays me to say anything. Otherwise I'd be rich. Huh. Alright, last one. Cap, squish. Then you can close your wallet. One's done. Next. So again, I like to bend this up first. I don't know, it's like a weird habit I got into. It's probably not necessary, but I like doing it anyway. And again, this end is definitely easier than the other one because you've got to contend with the zipper. But with this hole punch, it's much easier to do. So this is about a normal sewing speed for me. I'm not going overly fast. In fact, I might be going slower because I'm talking, so I'm not paying attention. Don't really know what to tell you. Practice makes perfect. I remember when this wallet used to take me an hour and a half, right? I didn't just wake up and be this good. Repetition, practice. Try different materials. Try different interfacing. See what you like. Different people like different stuff. I like my non-woven extra heavy stuff, but people might not like that because it's not woven. Each to their own, I say. Oh look, I grabbed one too many caps. Oop. On there, squish it under. So don't be afraid to just kind of push this around. It'll survive, I promise. There you go. 2 wallets in under an hour. Alright guys, hope that was fun. I'll see you next time.